Welcome to Three. I'm Gill Gross with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. Our topics today: one, learner Tien, and how does he compare to fellow teenage phenom Joao Fonseca? Also, the future of doubles and therapeutic use exemptions, particularly Adderall. A quick conversation towards the end about that. Let's begin with Tien. Amy, you were at Delray Beach. How was that, by the way? And you did get a chance to speak with Lerner. So I think we should start here. What struck you about watching Tien play tennis and getting to speak to him afterwards?
He's an incredible mover. That I saw him at eye level, and I also saw him in the stadium court. And I think if you really study his movement and his way that he does, you'll see some things that are a little bit different. I don't want to get into it now too much because it's in the weeds, and I want to see if other people are noticing the same thing I do. Really good, solid on both wings. The serve is a work in progress, and I asked him sort of an open-ended question, and he himself brought up the serve, and the answer was something along the lines of, "I don't want to grind. Like I'll grind myself into a pulp if I don't figure out a way, one way or the other, to get a few more." Free points on serve. Well, I mean, he's 5'11", so he's never going to be a power server, but I really like that he recognizes that there's some things that he can do with spot serving and different spins and things like that. Um, I'll share a little anecdote. There was a great crew from, I think it was Grounds Pass podcast or something like that. Very good crackerjack young journalists. And they had this mic that they were able to, mic him up really quickly before the interview. And Lerner really liked that mic. And he was asking them, like, where'd you get it? And he's like, I saw that on TikTok. And I realized that, like, he's just still very much a young person. I mean, he's just on the brink of adulthood. So he's picking things up really quickly. And he was also asked about his transition from the Challenger Tour. And basically his answer was, I've already exceeded my own expectations. So this is kind of like for my first year, this is kind of like gravy. But he's definitely committed to improvement.
It was fun watching him. Look, I'm left-handed too, so I have an affinity for a player like that. And I watched him about a year and a half ago when I was writing a story on Alex Mickelson. I watched them practice together in Orange County, and I read a great quote about a comment about him. Jerry Nathan, who writes for the Second Serve, said he's a needler and meddler. He's talking about the matches when he beat Medvedev in Australia, and I kind of like that concept because you see there's something. It's not going to be easy to play learner. It's gonna be he's not going to make it so easy on his opponents. He's the ball kind of early. He has to take pace off the ball. Yeah, the serve, that's going to be how, he hasn't been, well, he's been somewhat attacked on it, so that'll be interesting to see how he develops. So but that's an interesting, a real player of interest.
A needler and a meddler?
Yeah, a needler and a meddler. I mean, I don't think he means meddling like someone calls, who's rude to linesmen or crowds. It's just kind of the way. It's kind of like a sibling of a disruptor, and
Right.
we've played, so you know how I have an affinity for that kind of. It's like exceptional kind of disruption, tactical, hit behind you, the variety, all those things, right? Non-linear.
So he's got two top five wins already. And last year he tore it up at the challenger level. His record at the end of the year was 36-9. He won three challenger titles. He had an insane win streak over the summer. And then obviously at the Australian Open, a run to the fourth round at his first ever major. He beat Daniil Medvedev in a crazy five setter that ended in 2 in the morning. This week he beat Alexander Zverev. Zverev has struggled in the last month. Illness has completely wreaked havoc on Acapulco, and it seems like Zverev was also inflicted with that, like so many other players. Tomas Mahac did beat Tien in the next round, so he's no longer in contention in Acapulco. But at 19 years old, he is 83 in the world. Um, and I think him and Fonseca are such an interesting contrast because Tien has always kind of the instinct is to just put a little bit of a ceiling on him. I'm not seeing big weapons, so I'm just not really sure he's a top line prospect. So that's amazing that you're winning so many challengers at 18. Okay, that's amazing that you've gotten off to a good start on the main tour, but there's this tendency to almost put a cap on his potential when you're evaluating him. Fonseca, it's almost the opposite, where you want to say, all right, like I know there are growing pains, but that's can't miss. Like I know what I'm seeing here. So I guess the way I want to pose this question to start is that fair? When you look at Lerner Tien and you don't see the big power and the big weaponry, and for Fonseca, it's the opposite. Is it fair to look at Joao Fonseca as a different tier of prospect next to Lerner when their results early on are pretty similar, slight edge to Lerner Tien, although he's about a year older?
It's kind of like it's like the hare and the tortoise and the comet, like Fonseca. And this gets to the root of the whole, no, it's not fair to both of them because it gets to me at the whole. And again, this is my macro theme about why I don't like predictions, evaluation, treating athletes like commodities. So instead of looking at the potential, and they're both freshmen now, as it were, so that's fine, as opposed to let's say 2 years from now, and neither of them has gotten to a slam quarter and progress has stalled. What are as opposed to all the times you're around a tournament when a guy like that bursts, oh, he's the real deal. This guy, I tell you. And I think Fonseca, yeah, weaponry travels fast, right? Electric power, the broad-based skill set, the mental stuff, the competing under pressure. That's like sort of like the glamorous look, like he's it's just a supermodel or something. And then you've got the other one who's kind of like methodically. So is any kind of forecasting, potentially evaluating? I think it's unfair to all players. It's unfair to it's right, like right, because Teen like he's played college, doesn't have the weapons, seemingly, whatever that means. What's a weapon? I don't know. What do you think, Amy?
I was able to see a scouting report pre-match for a player who was going to play Fonseca. And of course, I was very interested, like, ooh, how do you beat this guy? And what would your guess be on how you beat Fonseca? What would be the
I would say there's no technical glaring weakness there, but he can become very erratic. And I think physically, most of his opponents are stronger physically than him at this stage. Plus, if you make him defend a lot, I think you can get to the legs, and I don't think it's everybody wants to make their opponent defend a lot. So this is not really very scouting reporty. But look, I would say his weakness is that he can get really erratic. He can
That's
miss a lot.
close. That's close, Gil. You're onto something. This is going to surprise people. The advice was to rally to the forehand.
I'm not
Why?
surprised. I'm not surprised.
Because that vaunted forehand that everybody's talking about and slowing down frame by frame to watch, that thing can spray. And so your original question, is it fair? Well, tennis is a game of errors. So who's making more errors right now? Lerner Tien doesn't make a lot of errors. So they're both great players. We don't know what the future holds. I personally think Fonseca is, I'm just glued to everything he does. But when you're talking about like his forehand and how exciting and what a weapon it is, what is a weapon? Ask yourself that. What is a weapon?
Right. Let's see,
I
and this gets to the question that comes up all the time. Yeah, what is a weapon? Oh, I see. I just watched 10 winners. That's the weapon, as opposed to weapons that are a little less discernible on highlight reels, right?
and that's a big difference. That's a big difference between Tien and Fonseca. I talk about that. The highlight reel. The highlight reel factor with Fonseca is so intoxicating, and anybody can understand it. Regardless of your level of tennis knowledge, you can look at what he's doing, and some of the supersonic ground stroke winners that he produces, you can almost be blind and deaf and understand it's
Yeah.
incredible. Uh, which matters in terms of popularity and hype, right? Like Steph Curry has the highlight reel factor. That's part of his popularity, right? And it there might be, and look, he's had a great career, but he might not be the great, and he's the greatest shooter of all time, but he might not be the greatest player of all time, but he's one of the most popular. And I think Fonseca has the Steph Curry. Lerner Tien might be more Tim Duncan. Sorry if people aren't getting that reference. But and that's one of the
Steph
things.
Curry, by the way,
Go
he
ahead.
did. He has won four times. He has been on four
Won four
championships.
titles.
So
And
he's
this
not
is the
the.
week that he dropped 56 in a game. So,
I lived
Well, but
in
I
North.
think Fonseca and I think Fonseca's gonna win, gonna
yeah,
have
me
do
too.
similar
Me
winning.
too. Me too.
And
Think
I
that
think
now. We want to think that now because, and I think, but being hyped, you don't. It's not like there's the hype committee. It's just people. It's just what captivates interest. And you're right. And in
exactly.
the broader world, just like I remember when, you know, if Richard Gasquet taught us anything, like look at him. And that's why I liked among the French guys sometimes. I like Simone. I like Gilles Simone sometimes. And it's like flash and style. But what's great about this sport is that people do it in all sorts of ways. I like the basketball comparison. Of course, those guys were part of teams, so they were 20% of their team. Whereas in tennis, you're the whole squad, and you can do whatever you want, and you can choose to not train, and you don't have teammates telling you how to fit into anything, or your coach is an employee, not the boss.
Somebody asked me a mailbag question over a year ago, and I answer hundreds of these every year, but this one I remember. It's rare that I would remember this. But someone said, "What is easier to develop in a player? Would you rather start with the player as, who has consistency and rally tolerance, or a player with big time offense who misses a lot?" So, like big power, and you got to rein it in and get them to keep the ball inside the lines more often, or they keep the ball inside the lines, but damaging their opponent doesn't come easily. What player is easier to work with? And I think my answer, and it's the kind of thing that like I would love to ask to a million coaches and get all the answers to, right? But I think my answer is, if the mentality for the big offensive player who misses too much, if the mental is good, I want that guy. I think more often the consistent player has better mental traits for whatever reason, and that can kind of skew it. I think Fonseca is so good mentally in terms of how he competes, how hungry he is to improve. I think, from what I can tell, just how grounded and healthy his support system is, that I trust that the footwork gets sharper, that the fitness gets better, that the decision making and the balance which goes into the footwork, like all of this stuff gets better, and he starts missing less and less forehands. I think I've already seen that, which is why to me Fonseca, for however inconsistent he is, and Amy, the statistics, by the way, that I've seen also back up the scouting report that you saw, that Fonseca has one of the most error prone forehands last year. He had one of the most error prone forehands in the world. I'm not concerned about that long term.
Mhm.
And at this level, that question about what type of player you want to work with at the pro level, at the top 100, at the frequent slam level, I think you're right. And you always hear about a player like a Sabalenka and Andre Agassi, Sinner. Hey, hey, wear down the guy's legs. Go easy, youngster. Because again, when you first come up, you think, I gotta hurt people. And you realize, oh, I do this pretty well. So I'm going to break down people's legs. But that's the model. That's the model. I think once you're in the highest levels of the game and kind of the real pro tour, I think at every other lower level, it's even more complicated. And I think, and you're right, it has to do with also the players, how they handle losing points. As Roger Federer said, the great player, he won 54% of his points. So how you manage losing those 46? Do you just understand? I do what I do, or does it infect you? Does it infect you? And the building of a style in this game is such a fascinating process, how the player goes about constructing, how they regard it's not even adversity. Losing points, it's not necessarily even adversity. If Billie Jean King told me a great thing once. She says, there's no defeat, there's only feedback. No failure, only feedback. So how you handle that feedback of, okay, yeah, lost that point. Okay, got to keep hitting that inside forehand.
I have a Tien theory
Okay.
because the question, I want to also go back to the question about him. Okay, what is his potential? How high is it right now? From what we can tell. And sometimes these things are hard to judge, which is part of Joel's point.
Sometimes.
Always.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I think about the easiest way to do this is comparison, right? If I see player A who's done all of this, and now I see young player B, and if B reminds me of A, that can give us an idea. And I think of Daniil Medvedev with Lerner Tien. Now, height wise, so opposite. Daniil Medvedev is the tallest number one of all time. And I think he's tied for the tallest slam winner. He's 6'6". Lerner Tien's 5'11". Um, Now, to say Medvedev had no offensive weapons wouldn't be correct. When he got to number one, and this is part of why he's gone downhill, the first serve is huge. It's massive. So Medvedev had a weapon, but mostly it was a lot about what is that, Joel? Meddling.
Needlers and meddlers.
He's a needler and a meddler. He doesn't hit his forehand hard on average. He doesn't hit his backhand hard on average. And it's consistency and it's defense and it's maneuvering the ball around the court. For me, Lerner Tien is Daniil Medvedev. Take away the serve, add the forehand, because Tien produces offense on the forehand much more comfortably than Medvedev, and probably even moves forward in volleys more comfortably than Medvedev. So that's my
Yeah.
Tien theory: is that he can be like Medvedev, take away the serve, add the forehand.
So then the question becomes, what's the recipe? Because then it's like, serves a good shot to have to get those you know, 8 freebies a set, let's say. Let's say you get 8 a set, or so that could be a third of your path to winning the set. Also puts less pressure on the rest of your game. And then the part we're going to see with Tien, all right, adversity. Now it's all in your rearview mirror. You made it out of the challengers. You're in the big leagues now. Okay, so now how are you handling that? Indian Wells this week, and it's hot, and you're on this back court, and then it's Miami, and then it's off the thing that for all the Americans, it's always a rite of passage, that European spring. That
Yeah.
whole time of it
Yeah.
all. And that's kind of player said to me, says, yeah, you can't even find a newspaper, and you gotta find USA Today like a few days later, and where's the Arby's? Where's the place where I can eat? It's the whole thing, and that's kind of gets to that player specific coping personality, how they deal with life.
Yeah, I mean he seems to compete incredibly hard and he's willing to do so much running, and the decision making and the tennis IQ is incredible, because in order to play as consistently as Tien does, you have to consistently be making the right decisions on what shot to play and how much risk you're taking on a shot by shot basis. And he has that ability to apply pressure, not miss. Let's go to topic two. We're going to hit on the doubles, which has been in the news recently. And I think this has been bubbling up for a long, long time, as the long-term trend is singles players, particularly on the men's side, but on the women's side as well, have withdrawn from doubles. And you rarely see single stars, particularly at the majors, participating in doubles anymore. The Bryan Bros retire, all that. There's just been a bit of a decay that I think everybody can sense. But in the last few weeks, the US Open has taken action on that. They've made a massive change that has basically ended decades and decades of tradition by eliminating the mixed doubles event as we know it, moving it to the week before the main draw, and facilitating it. So basically, top singles players are going to play mixed doubles. over the course of 2 days in a very condensed format. Uh, Riley Opelka took to Instagram, and this is a take that he shared like 3 years ago. So in a way, I thought it was a little bit silly that we were doing a whole nother news cycle on it. But he said, quote, they should 100% get rid of dubs. It's for failed singles players. There's no such thing as a double specialist. They don't sell a single ticket. They take up practice courts, physios, resources. They don't turn a profit, and they complain that they don't make enough money. That's pretty greedy behavior, if you ask me. And then we had some responses from doubles people that we can get to in a moment. Um, but first, I want to address, I guess, the future of doubles. Amy, where do you stand on all of this?
I am incredibly proud of the USTA. That's not something you hear from me often, or anyone. It was a bold move, and all the other sports, be it European football, be it NBA, all the successful sports innovate and they trial and error things. And tennis, for whatever reason, the fan base can be resistant to that. But you have to understand this wasn't working. Professional sports is not a charity. Um, I don't think it's right to try to force somebody to spend their entertainment dollar or their free time in a way that they don't want to because it's their free time. So the movement to try to just guilt people into um, watching doubles or going to doubles, I don't think was ever going to work in a free market. So I thought this was a great idea. Fritz was asked about this at Delray, and he said that he had no plans to play in the mixed doubles, but now he is going to play in the mixed doubles more than likely, because it's a great chance to get some hits in and get out there before the start of the tournament. So I think it's very exciting. And it's simple economics, law of supply and demand. You shrink the field so that it feels special. So I think it's great, it's exciting, and I will be there.
I agree that it's a neat move on the USTA part. It is a bold move. I think it's kind of it's like admitting where it's at. And we're talking. Let's admit. Let's say we're talking about mixed doubles now. We're talking about 4 events a year. So we're not. That's different than the talk about doubles and the tours overall. So let's just for now. I just want to address the mixed doubles. At the same time, I wonder how many top players, singles players, are going to play that and admit that they're going to be, even if it's a short couple of days. Um, that means you're going to be competing over 3 week period. So I wonder about that. I also, when I
It's
look
only
back,
so
hmm,
it's only 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. Uh,
the field is 16 teams.
16 teams, best of three set matches with sets to four, no ad scoring, tiebreakers at 4 all, and a 10 point match tiebreak in lieu of a third set.
Gil,
So
did you mention the prize money?
a million, a
Yes.
million to the winner.
Yes.
A million to each or team.
Unclear. Unclear to me.
Oh, half a mil or a mil. No problem. I guess then when I look back on it, I know some of the players when mixed doubles, not that back in the day and how that works, and to want to look back in history and see, okay, the mixed doubles was won that year by this team. They won these short sets, no ad. Huh. How that the long-term optics of that. However, from a consumer standpoint, I think I mentioned Billie Jean King earlier. She and Owen Davidson were a great mixed doubles team, and they played Marty Reeson and Margaret Court. Margaret Court and Billie Jean were the top two females in the world then. And they played this Wimbledon mixed doubles final in 1971, 54 years ago. That uh it was 13 all in the third set when they were still at it. And there's like kind of the birds flying and the thing going, and Billie Jean turned to Owen Davis and said, Owen, let's get out of here. And they won the next 2 games and they won it 15-13 in the third. Granted, there aren't a lot of those mixed doubles stories to be told. I mean, timing when it happens. So it's worth a shot. It's worth a shot to try it. I think that's fine with the mixed. There's a much bigger discussion to have overall about doubles and what it does on the tour, and even like I don't think Opelka was necessarily referring to this short mixed foray. Even that was just
No, no, he was referring to something exactly as you said, much larger.
larger picture of doubles on the tour, and that's a great topic. That's a big topic. Yeah.
It is big. Here's my stance. First of all, I feel bad in the human aspect of it. You know, these doubles players are a part of the tour. Mixed has been a massive deal for many of them. A big part of what they look forward to 4 times a year. A big opportunity to compete at these incredible events. The money isn't awesome, but it's something. And I feel bad for all of those participants. I think from a human standpoint, that's easy. From a stone cold business standpoint, if I am a business person evaluating how do I make a move that makes my event bigger and better and more valuable, this is the right call. Like this is taking an event that didn't generate, and I've been on the grounds at the US Open the last 4 years. I can tell you, like the mixed doubles event can have a little bit of juice sometimes, 1 or 2 matches, the semis, maybe the final. If Taylor Townsend has been involved the last couple of years. Those environments have actually been really good, but they're not getting people onto the grounds. Like people are waiting for the next big match on Ash and maybe popping over to Armstrong for matches like that. So it's not a huge asset. It's not on ESPN. It's not being televised, you know. So it's not a huge asset to the tournament. Fan Week is a huge asset to the tournament. This will be the showcase. This is going to be buzzy. This is going to work. I'm almost sure of it.
Hmm.
Um, it's going to create viral moments online. Fan Week is free. I don't know if they're going to charge for tickets to get in, but if it's free, then it's hard for me to argue with that or be upset about that. When you're giving away free tennis, that's the most amazing thing in the world. So that's kind of where I sit on it. Now, in the larger picture, again, I think you need to give doubles a chance, but they need to turn this around on their own. And I hope that all of this can be a little bit of a wake-up call to the actual doubles players individually that we might need to start fighting for our livelihood and go the extra mile to market ourselves, to promote ourselves, whether that's vlogging, more social media, embracing changes like being mic'd up during matches.
Yep.
There needs to be some bells and whistles here because the status quo right now, it is not sustainable because it is subsidization. They're being subsidized by singles, and long term, there's no reason for that.
They need to, I want that. I could make a whole list of like a zillion things they could do. How about putting their names on their shirts? How about clinics? They're playing at the tour events 2 out of 3, no edge sets with 10-pointer. They play less than I play when I play league tennis. So think about that. That they're and so they have time, they have capacity, and they could do things like like the Jensens did when they were in their glory. Call tournament directors and say, "How can I help your tournament? What can I do to be an ambassador for your tournament? How many clinics? How many fan days? How many, I'll try to return my serve, participatory things. How about some greater web content? Creating a better stuff on the site than just some of these bios, deeper stuff about doubles because we always hear, oh, people play doubles. Well, good, then make us care yet more. And it's their opportunity. Take 2% of your doubles purses and apply that to your marketing promotional budget to do things. And they're not just ad hoc and they're not just incidental. I mean, uh, it's right there for them if they want to. Otherwise, I agree, they're being subsidized.
Yeah, I agree. They need to get in the weeds. I went to the Daytona 500, which was a NASCAR auto racing event recently, and the NASCAR has something called the DAP, Driver Ambassador Program, where the drivers actually earn points for going out and interacting with fans, going to events, going to parties. So imagine that, like if you could actually earn points as a player, competitive points. They definitely need to do that. It reminds me too of a story where I always go to the US Open with a group of friends at least one day every year. And my girlfriends will always say to me, I'll say, oh, look, there's this, Fonseca over here on grandstand or playing Berrettini. Let's go watch that. And they'll go, let's grab some food or a drink and go watch some doubles. And I'm like, wait a minute. Some doubles? Who? Tell me their names. And of course, nobody can produce a name. And I realize that what they want to do is just have something on in the background while they drink their drink and have their food. And that's not enough. That is not enough. But if you really get in the weeds, if these doubles players really get in the weeds and get on social media, start interacting with people, go to clinics, like you said, go to events, go to parties, every tiny little 2 second, 30-second interaction that they have with a fan, that fan is going to remember that for life. So I agree with you guys. It's possible to salvage this. But as it stands, I think if they don't dig in, that the men's doubles and women's doubles you may have to go the way of what they're doing with mixed.
I don't see at the majors though. I do not see the All England Club thinking they will ever turn their mixed doubles event into what the U.S. Open did. I do not think the All England Club would want to will want to create a truncated 16 team fast four version. And that and so the history shows the U.S. Open is always Wimbledon was the first to make open tennis happen, but all the other innovations from the tiebreaker to things with Hawkeye to other things, the U.S. Open
Equal prize money.
equal prize money. Thank you. Yeah, equal prize money. The U.S. Open night play. That's all this stuff. These things all. I think they did once in Australia earlier, but anyway, the U.S. Open has been the innovator.
Yeah, tradition is one of the things that is I guess, a pull factor away from disrupting all of this. I mean, we do value tradition. I think it's the tradition and the human side of these are talented players, good people, and you want to make sure that whatever change happens slowly enough where you're not completely, I guess, decimating this population, which is a valued population on the tour, but is not producing. I don't think it's a net gain, monetarily, financially.
Oh
I
no,
don't think
it's
it's a net
tours.
gain.
The tours.
Exactly.
I love Amy's statement. Let's go watch some doubles, and I've sat with people.
Absolutely.
They enjoy it. They just don't know who anyone is, and for like 10 minutes, they build an affection for. Wow, this guy, I never heard of him before. He's really good doubles player, and they're good. They're fun to watch, but it's interchangeable. It's like
Right.
going to. It's like
Could it
going.
could it be more fun to watch though? Should they play with slower balls in men's doubles so that they play more rallies? Like it is time. I hope this is a wake-up call. It's time to innovate and it might be the players themselves that have to do it because there's a lot of complaining the tours aren't promoting us, the tours aren't marketing us, or they're not putting us on TV. Look, you can say that all you want. It's not going to happen. It's up to you guys.
No,
You
the
have to
doubles
do
guys
it.
think see. At the same time, then yeah, the tours promote them, and then when I've done stories to interview doubles people, it's kind of takes his it's not it's as difficult to get time with doubles players as it is with a slam winning singles player. It's like those doubles guys, except for the Jensens and Bob and Mike Bryan. I did a story once for the Jensens in the middle of a tournament. They were playing San Jose in the middle of the tournament. We flew in a helicopter to Marin County and they did a clinic and me and this other guy played a tiebreak with them and then we flew back in the helicopter. I did a whole kind of like I'm with the band story. And that was the Jensens. The Jensens understood it. The Jensens mic us up, whatever, all those kind of things that are going to make it more, make us, make you know us more. And they were willing to do those things. Yeah.
Well, Gil, the good news is if you really did want to implement that change to have slower balls for men's doubles, there's no shortage of slow, fuzzed up balls, apparently.
Actually, that's a good idea, Amy. How about this? Maybe after the ball changes in singles, those balls go to the doubles matches so that they play longer rallies. How about
That's
that?
Oh gosh, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let's go to our last topic. It's gonna be a quicker one. Um, Going back to again a mailbag question. In the whole Sinner stuff that we've seen go down as of late, somebody asked me about TUEs, and I've heard numerous players and people in the sport raise suspicions over therapeutic use exemptions, particularly in regards to the ADD medication Adderall, which like some players will tell you that a lot of players are on Adderall because their doctors have prescribed them Adderall. So Amy, I want to give you the floor to just take it from there because what I said on my show last week was it would be really interesting to see how much of the top 100 has a therapeutic use exemption for Adderall versus the average percent of adults who have ADD.
Yeah, so I have ADHD. And by the way, they got rid of ADD a
Okay.
while ago. With ADHD, there's two different predominant types. One is ADHD with hyperactivity, meaning you're like physically hyperactive. And the other is called ADHD inattentive type, which is what I have. It's a little more like daydreamy or whatever. But tons of really amazing people have ADHD, including Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Michael Phelps, Simone
Amy Lundy.
Biles. Haha, thank you. Um, but what's interesting is I have tried the medication and I don't take it every day. Lots of people do take it every day and they need to. I'm one of the people that takes it sort of as needed, when stuff really piles up in my life and I'm procrastinating and unfocused, I will take it. But being the curiosity person that I did, I have tried to play tennis on Adderall before. And my takeaway from all this is, first of all, to get the TUE, you do have to jump through a lot of hoops. You can't just get your doctor to prescribe it for you. First of all, you have to find a doctor or a prescribing professional who is going to do a thorough evaluation of you and say, okay, you have ADHD. You need to take one of these stimulant medications. But then the tours want you to get an independent physician, a second person that they will provide to assess you. And then you go through a period of titration where you have to find the right dose and you have to find the right medication. And there's tons of different medications. And when you're in this period of titration, it can take up to 6 months, really, or longer. Um, you're not going to be playing very well. You're not going to be playing at peak because you're trying to find the right dosage. And then the other thing that I want to get out there is that the side effects of this stuff is very real. Very, very real. Number one, it can be disruptive of your sleep, which can then exacerbate the problem.
For sure.
Number two, it can cause anxiety. Number three, it can decrease your appetite, which for a professional elite athlete, that's a very tricky proposition. Number four, and this is huge, these medications, Adderall or Ritalin or methylphenidate, any of them, are extremely drying. They will dry your eyes, they will dry your mouth, they will dry your joints. So you can cramp like that on these things. So I know that we live in a world that's very conspiratorial and I bet he's on something or I bet he's taking Adderall. I just want people to know that it's hard to get the exemption. It's not easy. And then the medications themselves, particularly if you don't actually have ADHD, the risks for side effects are quite large. And my opinion, I don't think it's sustainable. I mean, it may help somebody in a match here or there, but it is extremely difficult to continue to be on these things and compete at this level.
Why would you take it if you didn't have ADHD? Some of these medications.
Yeah, looking for an edge. There's the
Fine.
perception that it's okay. So let me get into this a little bit. Does it quicken your reaction skills? Yes, it can. If you're on the right dosage and all things being equal, you're not affected by the side effects, and you're hydrated and all that. It can slightly quicken your reaction skills, which would be a valuable thing to have. But on the downside, it can cause anxiety, it can make you irritable, it can affect your decision making, it can dehydrate you. Do you really want all that
And
when you're trying to play tennis?
focus would also be another benefit, right? Because
That's why I need it, that I can be very unfocused. And if I take my Adderall and I go to play tennis, am I more focused and am I able to sort of edit out extraneous thoughts? Little bit. It does help a little bit.
Even
Um,
if you don't have ADHD? What if you
that
don't?
I don't know because I do
yeah.
have it.
Oh, but that's the
Well,
one who's
look,
like,
I mean, it's
okay.
something.
Mm.
It's something, Joel, I'll add to that and just say, like, even universities are concerned about this. Students will try to find it and get it somehow because they feel like they will test better on Adderall. But I don't know. As Amy is kind of outlining, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of kind of questionable effects of that, and I think that's interesting. So, Amy, so from your research and your own experience, you're not as worried about this as an issue, as a competitive edge issue, and you don't feel like, off of no hard evidence, which I don't think we have any hard evidence, you don't think it's something that we should be really worried about.
No, I don't. If it helps somebody here or there in a one-off situation and they jumped through all the hoops and they got the TUE, fine, but it's not sustainable necessarily because the dosage that is right for you today may not be right for you tomorrow. And like let's say you stop, that's another thing that I didn't discuss. Let's say you stop taking the medication. There's a terrible rebound effect. Like it's gonna affect your appetite, your mood, all this stuff. So it's very fraught. And I would guess that on the tennis tour, because of the way tennis is and how physical it is and how much it drains you, that this stimulant misuse would be less of a problem than one might think.
Well, it is such a competitive and sometimes, adversarial environment that you could understand why you could get players like Carousel is one on the Changeover podcast who recently brought it up. You could see how maybe those narratives could bubble up, whether or not they do have merit. I hope that more is done on this. I hope this is looked into further, and perhaps journalism, whether it be with retired players, current players, anonymously, could maybe contribute to all of this, because it is an interesting aspect to the whole "is tennis clean" question. But I appreciate all of those insights and that additional context that you were able to provide, Amy. That'll do it for this episode of 3. We're available on all podcast platforms. Appreciate it if you leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. We will see you next time on the next episode of 3.